Hi, my name is Kristin. This is Kristin Kraves Books. So I am not somebody who films a lot of large unhauls because the books behind me are books that I've read and loved, and that's kind of how I want to keep my shelves. So if I don't love something, I'll often tuck it away or donate it. I have a couple I'm not getting rid of yet because they're going to be like my most disappointing books of the year, so I want to save them, but I will unhaul them at the end of the year. But I got into a bit of a spring cleaning kind of mood, and there are a few books that I have read or that were on my TBR that I know don't belong on this shelf, but I wasn't ready to get rid of for whatever reason, but I finally am now. So the first one I know is going to be controversial, and this is Final Girls by Riley Sager. And I did have fun with this book. This was the first Riley Sager book I ever read. It was the first time I was introduced to this Final Girls trope. I wasn't reading a lot of slasher novels or horror or thrillers or mysteries at the time, so I thought that this was a fun one, and I still think it's a good one to just read in one sitting on the beach by the pool or something like that. But I've tried other Riley Sagers since then and haven't loved any of them. I know Home Before Dark is a lot of people's absolute favorite, and I didn't like it, so I think it is time for me to finally just acknowledge that Riley Sager is not for me, to donate this. I actually think I'm going to give this to a friend who will love this because he loves thrillers, but this one I just have to part with it. I don't think it belongs on my favorite shelves, and I know somebody who's going to have a good time with this summer. And then there was a time I was really into Gail Forman for some reason, but it's been a long time since I have read one of her books, and I know that I read Leave Me, but I can't tell you a single thing about this, and that is a sign to me that it is not a book I need on my shelves. It obviously has not stayed with me. I have another book by Gail Forman somewhere that is signed, so I'm not quite ready to get rid of that one yet, but this looks like another good summer read. We do have a free little library, or a little free library near us, and I will put this in there, and I know somebody will be excited to see that in there. So I have no idea what this is even about, and I have read it, so time for that to go. The Nest is a book that I absolutely did not like. It is a family drama, which I normally love. I am always drawn to family dramas, family sagas, but this one just did not work for me in any way. But the reason I've held on to it is this cover. This has got to be one of the most beautiful covers I have ever seen, and this received a lot of hype at the time it came out, and I think a large reason for that was this cover, but I can't hold on to it just because it's so beautiful. I didn't like it at all, so it's time for it to go into that little free library as well. Next is an ARC, and it always kind of pains me to get rid of ARCs because I'm always so grateful for them, but I didn't like this book, and this is Last Chance Books. And in theory I should have loved this. Obviously it's about books. This cover is adorable, and it is kind of a You've Got Mail retelling where we're following these two characters. One's family owns a small bookstore, and the other his family owns like a chain, and they have a bit of a hate to love romance, but I just didn't like the main character at all. There's actually a booktuber in here, so I thought that was fun, but there's just not enough in here for me to love, for me to keep it and justify keeping it. So I will probably put this in the free little library as well, because I never know what to do with ARCs. What do you do with your ARCs? But yeah, it pains me a little bit too because this cover is so good, and I love the tagline, book lovers can be haters too, but it just didn't work for me. Next we have Stalking Jack the Ripper, and actually I enjoyed this. It was fun for what it was, but I don't think I will ever finish this series. I've talked about this a lot, that I'm a terrible series reader, but there's so many that I do want to prioritize and get to and finish, and this is just so low on the list that I don't need this hanging on my shelves taunting me. So I'm gonna pass this one along to somebody who will love this. It is a YA kind of horror mystery. I thought it went to some interesting places. I did like the atmosphere, but it's just not a book that I need on my shelves. Here's going to be another controversial book, but I'm getting rid of A Darker State of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I have read a few books by Victoria Schwab, and I haven't loved any of them, but I do have Gallant, and I think that's going to be my last chance for her books. There's just something about her writing that doesn't work for me, and I can never really pinpoint what that is. And again, this is the first book in the series. Interesting premise, didn't love the execution, and that seems to be the case for me with this author. So again, there's so many series that I need to finish that I know I'm never going to get to this one, so somebody will be really excited to find this in that little free library, so I'm happy to pass that one along. Or my neighbor next door, she loves to read, and I have a feeling this might be up her alley, so I'm going to see if she has this or not, so it'll go to a good home either way. Next is a book that I haven't read, and it pains me to get rid of because I do like this author, but this is After the End by Claire Mcintosh, and this was actually sent to me by Penguin. and it's a finished copy, so grateful for that. And I love Claire Mcintosh. She wrote one of my favorite thrillers of all time. It's called I Let You Go, and I just love that. So expected this to be that, but this is not a thriller. This is a family story about a couple whose child is sick, and I tried to read this and it was just too heavy and too much for me and just not what I was expecting from Claire Mcintosh, and it was too much for me, so I'm going to pass that one along. Though I'm so grateful to be sent it, and I do like Claire Mcintosh's writing, and I think she actually has a thriller coming out this year that I will definitely be reading. So yeah, it pains me to get rid of a book by her, but it's just not for me, too sad for me. And then speaking of thrillers, I am going to pass on Into the Water by Paula Hawkins, and I think I liked this more than a lot of people do. Obviously Paula Hawkins wrote The Girl on the Train, which I donated a while back. But I actually thought this was fun, and there are a lot of characters it's hard to keep track of, but I still remember how it ends. I remember a lot of the characters, so to me that is a sign of a good thriller, because I read this years ago when it first came out. But I just don't keep a lot of thrillers unless they are 4 or 5 star reads for me, and this was a solid 3, but still glad I read it. And I just know a lot of people in my real life, people in my real life who read, they tend to be thriller readers, so I'm going to pass this on to one of them. But Paula Hawkins, hit or miss with her books. What was the last one? She just had one as well, and I read them, but for some reason, she's an author. I will always give her thrillers a try, but I just don't keep them on my shelves. Again, we have another first book in the series, and this is The Bone Witch by Rinchipatko, and I actually thought this was pretty interesting, did some interesting things. It is a beautiful looking book, but again, not a priority for me, and the audiobooks for these are available for free if you are an Audible Plus member. So if I do feel the need to continue up the series, I will probably just listen to it and finish it that way. But I haven't heard great things about the rest of the books in the series, and again, I think my neighbor might like this, so I will see if she wants it. But yeah, it was an interesting book, and I just don't need it. And again, another reminder of series that I won't finish, so it'll be good for me to have that off my shelves. I only have 2 more, and again, I think this will be controversial. I am getting rid of Red Rising. I have Golden Sun somewhere, but I can't find it, and I have Morning Star. So I'm going to donate an entire series. Maybe my neighbor again will want that, but I loved this first book. It was one of the first sci-fis that I ever read, so it was something unique and special to me. And then I finally read Golden Sun last year, and I just couldn't get into it. I think everything that I loved about this first one with the games and everything, it was just not there, and it just was kind of boring for me. And I have heard that that is the best book in the trilogy, so if I didn't like it, there's no sense continuing on, especially since there seems to be more and more books added to the series, which was first a trilogy, and now I think the 6th book is coming out this year or something, so I just need to give up on it. But I did love this first book, but I think donating the trilogy to somebody will be nice, and hopefully they enjoy the whole thing more than I did. And then the last one is They Both Die at the End by Silvera, and I read this a few years ago, and I know that it's getting a bit of a resurgence from Book Talk, and I just think that, again, my neighbor, she's younger than me, she will appreciate having this, so I really just want to give it to her. I thought it was a fine book. It did make me emotional in the end, but it's just not one that I feel like I need to keep, and I'm excited to give that to her and make her cry and see her read outside on the deck crying reading this. So I will be happy to pass that along to her. So those are all the books that I am unhauling. As I said, I don't do huge unhauls because I'm pretty selective of about what I keep, and there are a few disappointing reads from this year that I will donate at the end of the year, but I just kind of like to have them because it's easier for me to hold them up in a video than try to edit in a photo and all that kind of stuff. So I would love to know what you do with your unwanted books. So do you have people in your life that you donate them to? Do you take them to use bookstores? I've never done that, but maybe that's something I should think about doing in the future. Do you have little free libraries around you? I love my little free library. So yeah, I'm just wondering what you do with your books that you want to unhaul. And thanks again for your support. I will talk to you again soon. Bye for now.